Hello and welcome to Boomer Live once again, ladies and gentlemen. And here we are live talking about the World Cup group stages, which got over yesterday. So today we are to talk about. There's no match which took place today, so we are here to talk about it in depth as to who played the best in the group stage, who were the overperformers, who were the underachievers, and all those sort of stuff today. There's Sandipani joining me. Sandipani, welcome on the show. At the end of the group stage, you reckon the deserving top four made it, and the undeserving ones did not really make it at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. I think this was the top four in the halfway stage at the halfway stage as well, and I mean most of us really predicted them to stay at the top throughout, and they did. And you hardly saw any shuffling between the top four and the rest of the crowd. I think Pakistan was always chasing at number five, and at one point Afghanistan was also at number five, and then you had teams like Afghanistan, Pakistan, Sri Lanka coming in, coming out of number five position. Sri Lanka eventually faded down to the number ninth position, losing the Champions Trophy qualification spot as well. They are currently banned with ICC as well. So I think Sri Lanka has had the worst tournament possible out of the 10 teams. And probably you would say that England would be very disappointed as well. But I think the deserving four teams really qualified. And a lot of people at the start of this tournament, if you would have asked them their top four, I think this would be the top four, or probably there would have been England in place of a South Africa. Other than that, I think New Zealand, South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, and India were touted to do well. They were probably expected to be in the top four as well. But England eventually missed out, unfortunately, because of a horror show at the start and probably throughout the tournament as well. Similar was the case with Pakistan as well. I think just they were just not good enough to be challenging enough.
Yeah,
Abel,
I agree with you. I agree with you totally on that because when you talk about the top four as well, it is ultimately deserving top four. But let's start from the last team on the table, Netherlands, to start off with. I mean, you reckon at the end of the World Cup, they'd be very proud of the way in which they played in this World Cup. There are a lot of things we can talk about, especially Netherlands winning those two games. But the one thing which we appreciate Netherlands team is they were one of the most astute teams when it comes to their planning. They planned things well. Their preparation was very good in this World Cup. Now, they came into this World Cup for defeating teams. It was not a participation which was their goal. Came in to defeat one of the semi-finalists in South Africa, then went on to win against Bangladesh as well. So you reckon Netherlands will be very happy with the way in which they played this World Cup?
Yeah, I think they will be pretty satisfied. I think with the start that they had, two wins out of the first six games, they would have probably hoped to create another upset and get that wins tally to at least number three. I think they'll be very disappointed with the way they lost against Afghanistan, and I think towards the end of the competition, I think they lost a bit of steam. And they went on to concede. I will say that they had a very good bowling lineup as compared to the batters because I think the batting has led to their downfall in most of the games. Apart from the game against Australia, England, and India, where they went on to concede in the higher 300s, or against India for that matter, even 410. Apart from these three games, in the other six games, I think their bowling had been really content. It was the batting that really let them down, especially the top order batters. I think players like Max Sodaud, Vikramjit Singh at the start of this tournament never really went going, and even also the likes of Colin Ackerman, even though he looked extremely good in the game yesterday, but even after yesterday's performance, he scored some 216 runs at an average of 24, which is really poor. But and having talking about that, I think the top order is where they actually really went wrong, and I think the leading run scorer Engelbrecht went on to score 300 runs in this tournament, but still the problem being he played at a strike rate of 66.67. So that is basically 2 runs of three balls. He played at a run rate of 4 runs per over. So that has been their problem. And I think the shining light will be Neera Manaru's performance yesterday, and also the
Yeah,
captain. The old, I can say old, but he is a very wise captain, Scott Edwards. I think he really
absolutely.
turned up and especially his captaincy. I think if there is one wicketkeeper captain that I've been very impressed with, it has to be Netherlands captain Scott Edwards, and the planning was top notch. I think they really performed above their expectations, so I think they'll be happy with their performance.
Yeah, I agree with you on that because if you look at this Netherlands team, they did their preparations very well. I mean, whatever they achieved in this World Cup is primarily because of their preparations leading into this World Cup. To be honest, coming to India 3 weeks earlier, setting up a camp in Bangalore, and to add to all this, they also took some net ballers from India, They advertised they wanted a mystery spinner, a left arm quick who could bowl 130 plus, and they played some practice matches against Karnataka state team. Though they lost few of them, but they were extremely impressive in the way in which they played a lot of these games. I mean, ultimately, if you have to pick one player who could possibly get an IPL call up, I mean, it's too much to think about right now. Who could that be? Who could be that one player? For me, if Basel leader has a good 2024 World Cup, I think he's right there to get an IPL call up.
Yeah, exactly. I think Bas has been the top wicket taker, topmost wicket taker in this tournament. He has picked up 16 wickets, and he is closely followed by a Logan Van Beek and a Paul Van Wickeren, 12 wickets each. And I think this is the pace department is what has impressed us the most about this Netherlands setup. Because at the start of this tournament, we knew that they were going to come up with a challenge, but I think they will be a far better side in the 20 overs format as well. Because sometimes when you are on the flow, when you are bowling well, 4 overs you can get through easily. But we have seen that some of these players, Logan Van Beek took a punishment from India. Even a Paul Van Beekeren went for 90 odd runs yesterday. So I think a lot of players took a beating in the last game against India. But I think they have been really consistent throughout this tournament.
Yeah,
And if it's talking about a course of say a 4 over or 5 over spell, I think even the spinners, Aryan Dutt has provided Netherlands with brilliant starts, and Rolf van der
mm,
Merwe was their best bowler yesterday as well. So I think
yeah,
there is a very bright spot in that middle or I mean the bowling department is really strong. And yeah, Bazilide is my pick as well if you want to pick one. But I am very very impressed with Paul Van Wickeren as well. I think I
absolutely.
would like to see more of him. Hopefully in the 2024 World Cup he shines once again.
Yeah, you guys are 45 minutes late, is what couple says. But our stream was scheduled at 10:30, not at 10 o'clock. So yeah, I mean, we are 5 minutes late rather than 45 minutes. So you are still fair enough in saying that we are late. Is Anushka Sharma pregnant? I think Sandeep Bunny has the news. What do you think?
I don't do inside gossips, but yeah, I believe so. I mean, it will be better if you can ask Virat Kohli the same. I think he'll be the better person to say that. But I mean, yeah, I think so.
Okay, okay, that's not something which we are aware of. And if Sandeep Bunny says yes, then there is something about it.
I mean, you can
But
ask, oh, did Virat Kohli bowl well yesterday? I can answer that. I can't answer whether Anushka Sharma is pregnant. That is completely, I mean,
Virat
not in
Kohli
my
is one of the
forte.
best economy rate, better than Harris Roth and rest of the others as well. It's
Everybody has the economy
4.18.
rate better than Harris Roth right now.
Yeah. So we'll go to that team number 8 in this World Cup. That is Sri Lanka cricket. I mean, what an awful World Cup did they have? Ultimately, if they look back at this campaign, they'd be saying that we had such an awful campaign because they just went on to win a couple of games. One was against Netherlands, other one was against England. But altogether, if you put that, it was just a very bad campaign. They lost Shanaka in between the World Cup. Hasaranga was injured way before the World Cup started. Chamira came in very late and their top order just collapsed. And I think ultimately, if you look at it, it's just a bad World Cup for them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they are the team that had the worst World Cup because
Couple,
I felt,
once a couple, we'll talk about this as we reach New Zealand. We'll go
yeah,
team
we are
by
going to
team
cover
by
all the
team.
teams. Yep.
We'll cover all the teams. So we're going team by team by teams because and it's only fair that we cover every team and we just don't put focus on that game because we'll have a full on preview of the semi final tomorrow as well. But we'll definitely take these points up today as we mentioned.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
exactly. Yeah, I'm talking about the Sri Lankan team. I think they have been the worst team in this tournament because at the start of this tournament, if you would have asked anybody, they would have said probably Netherlands are the weakest team, and then you could have probably pointed out at a Bangladesh or who's a team going through transition. But nobody would have expected this Sri Lankan team, especially after their performance in the Asia Cup, to really struggle like this. And then end at the bottom of the table. But yeah, to be fair to them, they did lose their captain Dasun Shanaka in the middle of things as well. And there were lots of injuries. Their main bowler Hasaranga was missing. Even for the Asia Cup as well, he was not there. So I think they
Yeah.
have had some very key players missing from this tournament, and
Hmm.
hence they had to use players like Angelo Matthews and Angelo Matthews in particular, who is a player out of prime, to come back, come back out of retirement from ODIs because 35
Yeah.
years old, he hadn't been playing ODIs for a long time, and do the job as an all-rounder because they have used Angelo Matthews as a bowler as well, and I think Angelo Matthews has bowled way better than he batted in this tournament. A lot of hopes,
Yeah.
expectations were on Angelo Matthews to really steady the ship in that middle order in the Sun Shanaka's absence, but I think he didn't really get enough opportunities to play the finisher's role because Sri Lanka had awful starts towards the later end of the tournament. I mean, if you talk about their best power play performances, it came in the second game of the tournament where they scored 340 runs, and after that also they went on to lose it. But they also had the worst performance in power play, 14 for 6 against India in
Yeah,
10 overs was something that sums up Sri Lanka's run in this World Cup. It has been disappointing
absolutely.
to say the least at the end.
I mean, if you look at this data as well, which is provided by our one of the best analysts out there, Sai Prasad Kangne, he had provided this data for us. So, it clearly says one thing that Sri Lanka had lost a lot of wickets in the power play. If you compare it with other teams, them not being able to put up scores, set up base was one of the major reasons, you reckon? Because if you look at the first match where they got hammered 425 runs against South Africa, then they went on to lose that biggest stage. They scored 344, lost to Pakistan there. That put a lot of pressure, you reckon, on the top order to score a lot of runs, and that really deteriorated the team. And also to add to that, Kushal Mendes taking up captaincy really affected that with his batting as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was too much to ask of Kushal Mendes to come in and take the owners of the ship and of a selling ship at that because they did not have the bowling. Even in the first two games where the Shanaka was still there, I mean, Pathirana was another player of whom high things were, or I mean, people at least expected him to go well in this tournament. It was the worst or the most horrible possible start to a World Cup that any youngster could have. I hope really he bounces back somewhere in the future. I think he's more of a T20 bowler, and he'll have to work on his line and length as well. But talking about Sri Lanka, I
Absolutely.
think, yeah, exactly. I think Kushal Mendes, after getting the responsibility of captainship, I think his performance really decreased. And towards the end of the tournament, you could see that his stats were pretty mediocre. If you talk about his stats at the start of it, he had scored some 200 odd runs at a strike rate of 130, 140 in the first two games, and then managed
Yeah.
to score another 100, 120 in the next seven games. So, which is
Yeah.
absolutely poor, pathetic, and that has been Sri Lanka's campaign.
Absolutely. I think that's about from Sri Lankan team. We'll go to the next team, which is Bangladesh. I mean, there was a comment from Kapil which also said about how Bangladesh was not competent enough to make it to the Champions Trophy. But if you look at the Bangladesh team, they had a lot of issues, similarly like the Sri Lankan team. About for Sri Lankan team to add to the fire, they're also been suspended by ICC for having political influence in the board. Not sure when are they going to come out of the suspension and come out fighting for that. So it's going to take a time for Sri Lanka. The misery has just gotten worse. But if you look at the other end of things, for Bangladesh came to this World Cup with a lot of political interference. Tamim Iqbal and Shakib Al Hasan fiasco is something which we all know about. Then they came into this World Cup almost battered, but they won the first game against Afghanistan, which I think really did not help the tournament for that sake. Because after that, if Afghanistan would have won that game, they would have been in challenging position for the semi-final also. But yeah, they won against Afghanistan. After that, they just kept falling and falling. Then they ultimately won one game very much later on, which was against Sri Lanka in the World Cup. But let's just talk about it. How poor a campaign they've had. I mean, nothing went right for them. And if you look at this particular stat which I showed earlier on, Bangladesh is right up there, number two in that list for most wickets lost in the power play as well. Batting did not go their way. Liton Das or Tanzim Hassan was not consistent. They were not consistent rather. And then to add to that, Shanto was a hit and miss in this World Cup. Shakib did not really do well. Mohammedullah did show signs of what he could do, but it was all too late by then. And to be very honest, Bangladesh has had a mystery of a World Cup. They've had an awful World Cup to start off with, and then just get gotten worse with a lot of controversies, and their bowling also not clicking.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the most disappointing point for Bangladesh has been the performance of some of the senior players. I think Shakib Al Hasan and Mushfiqur Rahim never really turned up. And for this Bangladesh side to succeed, you had to have senior players like Mustafizur Rahman. He's a very senior member in this team right now because I think he is past his prime playing for Bangladesh. He has been playing for Bangladesh for the last 7, 8 years. And also players like Shakib Al Hasan, Mushfiqur Rahim playing for 16, 17 years. This was the fifth World Cup appearance. And they did not do anything with the bat. I think Shakib Al Hasan averaged some 27 with the bat, Mushfiqur Rahim some 25 odd runs. Mahmudullah was probably their only player with an average in excess of 50, in excess of 40 as well. He averaged 54 and scored some 300 odd runs. In the bowling department as well, you had five mediocre bowlers from Bangladesh. Shakib Al Hasan was the second highest or the joint third highest leading wicket taker for Bangladesh. He picked up 9 wickets, and the highest wicket taker for Bangladesh in this campaign has been Shoriful Islam and Mehdi Hassan Miraj, both of whom has taken only 10 wickets in 9 games.
Yeah.
So I think it was a very, very dismal performance, especially from the Bangladeshi bowlers. But then again, the Bangladeshi batters did not do anything to put pressure on the oppositions. We saw they were able to score in excess of 300 only in the last game against Australia. But that too, the bowling performance was below par as well. And the politics affecting them at the start of this tournament, and especially the senior players not performing. Players like Shakib Al Hasan and Mushfiqur Rahim. We had seen Bangladesh have really successful campaigns in the 2015 World Cup. 2019 World Cup, they had a mediocre performance, but they were still on the. They were not reeling at number 8's position. But what changed this time around is probably Shakib Al Hasan's performance really dipped, and the captain was not leading from the front. And there was also so many incidents, controversies off the field as well. So I
Yeah.
think Bangladesh is a very, very precarious side right now, and they would be thanking their stars, thanking God, thanking the New Zealand team for beating Sri Lanka so heavily, because they have finally earned that. They at least managed to scrape through to the Champions Trophy of 2025. And I think if this team can manage to go through transition in the next 2 years, I think then they'll still be a team that can probably pose some threat. But then again, they will be the weakest link in the Champions Trophy 2025, hands down. And all the teams would be looking to beat them.
Absolutely. That's a very good question here from Hazel. Should Bangladesh have tried that bowler who picked up wickets against Indian Asia Cup, that pacer? I think he's talking about Tanzim Hassan
Tanzim,
Saqib.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Tanzim Hassan Saqib, who also picked up, who was an under 19 World Cup winner as well. Yeah, was that going to be a good move? And they should have tried him as well, right? Because he did well one match.
I
As
mean,
your
nothing.
campaign was derailing anyways, why didn't you
Yeah,
try that out?
I think he got one game, if I'm not wrong. Uh, Towards the end. But then again, I understand why Bangladesh did not go ahead and picked up a Tanzim Hassan, because he's a very, very young talent, and they thought their experience could do it, because the way Shariful Islam was bowling, and Taskin Ahmed and Mustafizur Rahman are your two main pacers. So it was going to be a really, really tough call to drop a Mustafizur Rahman who is completely out of form, and probably Shariful Islam was their pick, whom they could have dropped if he would have performed badly. But he has been the best bowler in this tournament, so they never really could drop him as well. So I think they played Tanzid Hassan when in one of those games where Tuskin was injured. But apart from that, he did not really get a go. And even if he would have gotten a go, I feel that he would have struggled, because the pitches over here wouldn't have supported, wasn't as friendly to the Pacers as say it was in Sri Lanka back then in the Asia Cup.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that's about it from Bangladesh. I mean, we want to cover 10 teams and we've just done with three. Long way to go, long way to go. Nowhere there. So we'll talk about the team which really came into this World Cup as defending champions and left the shores as one of the with the most disappointing campaigns. And you also saw with their announcement last evening, with their new squad announcements for the Caribbean tour, they're looking at a complete overhaul. I'm talking about the English national cricket team. I mean, what a awful and disappointing campaign. Like, without any doubt, the underperforming team of this tournament. They had everything to come here and defend the title. Everybody, literally everybody, had them as their top four, but they just couldn't deliver. I mean, it's just a travesty that the kind of World Cup they had can't find reasons. The only reasons we're pinpointing again and again is a lack of 50 over cricket and maybe correct selections, which could have possibly gone their way. There's a 50-50 call at the end of the day. But ultimately, if you look at it, it's just been a very awful campaign for them. They have themselves to blame for it because they played some bad cricket in important moments and they let the game away. How do you define or describe the English national team's performance in the World Cup?
I think it was very, very poor, to say the least, because I won't criticize the players as much, because they are all decorated, celebrated cricketers in England. They brought the same core that won them the World Cup in 2019. That was a part of the side that won the T20 World Cup in 2022 as well. So I think they were two-time defending champions coming into the ODI World Cup to defend the big title that they had won by the closest of margins in 2019. But I think they have had a very, very awful campaign, because we went about this, spoke about this on Lens in the post-match live of the England team, that the players were coming back to the national side without much practice of the ODI format. When you talk about teams preparations, you go back to a Netherlands who were in India for the last 2.5, 3 months, preparing for the ODI World Cup, facing domestic sides, and then you talk about this England side where there were 4 to 5 players who were coming out of retirement to play the World Cup. ODI World Cup, who are not a fix, who are not your starting players in your regular ODI side. Yes, they are really celebrated cricketers. Ben Stokes did go on to have a good tournament, great tournament, a century over there as well. His first
Yeah.
in the ODI World Cup. But then again, you did not have the team clicking as an unit. And the main problem I would say is the team selection. There was a lack of camaraderie as well, because players coming in and just getting a rope ahead of some of the young talents, the likes of Harry Brooks, who was picked ahead of the stalwart, the experienced Jason Roy, who was picked into the side and did not get to start. And David Malan was forced to open with a out of form Johnny Bairstow, who only performed in the last game. So I think all in all, everything went wrong for this England side, and also I think their bowlers' penetration towards the start of the tournament. I mean, all their main top three bowlers at the start of this tournament were averaging close to 70, 75. There was only Adil Rashid who had a bowling average of some
Yeah.
35 odd runs. But apart from that, you talk about Chris Wokes, you talk about David Willey, you talk about Mark Wood. Everybody was traveling. Sam Curran was all traveling for at 7, 8 runs per over and had an average in excess of 70. So I think the bowlers never really turned up. And I think where England really went wrong is they did not really assign roles to certain players. They did not have a bowler who could start. I mean, they had an opening bowler, but after that, they did not have bowlers to bowl in the middle overs supporting Adil Rashid. Moeen Ali did not really come to the party. Death overs bowling has been and was a huge concern throughout the tournament. The batters did not know who will come and perform the role of a finisher. Nobody knew who is going to be the anchor in this team. Joe Root was supposed to be the anchor in the team, but the way he tried to play all those reverse scoops against fast
Yeah.
bowlers, you would feel that he was almost bored of ODI cricket. And these are some of the very very concerning side, because you won't associate a Joe Root with reverse scoops. And I mean, all the time I think it's his go to shot right now. And he was really embarrassed in the game against Netherlands as well, where he got out almost getting nutmegged. All in all, I think the England batting unit did not have any role defined to them. Also, the out of form Johnny Bairstow couldn't really provide England with a strong, solid foundation or a base from which the batters, the heavy batters or the power hitters could really capitalize on. So all in all, even Josh Butler could only bat once in this entire tournament. Out of the 9 games, Josh Butler came in to bat in the death overs only once in the game against Pakistan. That too in the last game. So you had
Yeah.
your finishers not being able to play in the finishing roles because your top order was really crumbling.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have some comments here. England was lucky in 2019. Karma hit them. Okay, makes sense to an extent. Jorut's selection explained that. I mean, as we just spoke, Jorut's
Kapil,
selection
I
is
think you
still
should go and
debatable.
ask Luke Wright, who is sitting at the top of the table position, enjoying his position, enjoying the fame. Because I don't think unless they really, really sack him for this, because I think this was a sackable call. Not just the inclusion of Joe Root, but the exclusion of Jason Roy and some of the teams that they went on to pick and that they fielded in the playing 11 with Sam Curran not being in the team. I mean, what are you giving? Sam Curran is probably their uh, a fair shot as the next captain, because he was given the tough job of captaining a Punjab Kings side in the IPL as well. He has the experience. He's probably going to be the next captain as well. What example does it set to? I mean, what example does it give to the player, or what does it do to his confidence when you see a bowler of Sam Curran's caliber, who was their main bowler in the death overs in 2022? Who was a power hitter and was doing the job in the lower middle order with the bat as well. You just dropped
Yeah,
him of the playing 11, and that's not giving any confidence to players like that. Even a Harry Brooks, a future star, they couldn't really fit him into the playing 11 because they did not have a playing 11 in the mind. They just had, we'll fill our team with 15 power pack players based on their pedigree, some of which they did not even consider pedigree. They just considered whether
yeah,
they had results for England in the past or not. And I think that is where they went
absolutely.
completely wrong.
I mean, let's go to the next team. Um, we'll go to the team number 6 in this World Cup. That is Afghanistan. I mean, only praise but nothing else for this team. As we did mention, if they had a couple of games go in their favor, which is Australian game which they had in their hands, and the first game if they would have defeated Bangladesh, this would have been a World Cup of semi-final for them. I mean, let's just talk about them. How happy they would be at the end of this campaign. You think they'd be disappointed that they lost those two games? Or would they be very pleased after a 9-0 campaign in 2019 to come out and to be one of the contenders for the semi-finals? Though they did not make it, but they showed the world what they could possibly do in the coming future.
I think, provided that they have finished at the bottom of the table in 2019 with 9 losses, I think if you would have asked them whether we'll be happy with 4 wins out of 9 games at the start of this tournament, they would have taken it hands down, especially after a loss to Bangladesh in the first game. I think they would have been kicking themselves after the first 2 losses. But from then on, I think they have gone on to win 4 games in the next 7. They went on to win 4 games of the next 5, and then they lost against South Africa and Australia to close it. But yeah, they'll at 4 wins out of 7 games, and with the position with having Australia under the reels at 7 for 91, chasing 292, I think they would be kicking themselves, and I think they have only themselves to blame. Because now, if you just take a look at the Afghan bowling lineup, their stats as well, I think even though as an unit they have come together, they have done a decent enough job with the ball. But if you talk about individual stats, Rashid Khan has been the leading wicket taker in this tournament. He has just picked up 11 wickets at an average of 35, which is very unlike of a Rashid Khan. And then you have players like Navinul Haq, Mujibur Rahman, Mohammad Nabi, all have picked up 9, 8 wickets, 7 wickets. But I think the player of this tournament from Afghanistan camp has been Azmatullah Umarzai, because very little was heard of him before this tournament. All the buzz was about Rashid Khan or a Mujibur Rahman and the young talent Noor Ahmed. Navinul Haq was going all guns blazing
Yeah,
as well.
yeah,
And
yeah,
Mufazal Faruqi. But this bowler, or you can say an all-rounder, especially with his performances with the bat, he missed out on that really, really well-deserving century against South Africa. I think he deserved a century in that game. But
yeah.
nonetheless, he has an average in excess of 70 at a strike rate of 91 for this
Wow,
Afghanistan
yeah.
side in this World Cup. And he
Incredible
has picked
player.
up some 7, 8
Incredible
wickets
player.
as well. So I think he has been the player of this tournament. Ibrahim Zadran has been their leading run scorer, scored 370 odd runs. But the strike rate is what they will look to improve on.
Yeah,
And he's the cameo, I mean, the anchor role player who looks to play deep and looks to play throughout the innings. Also becoming the first Afghan cricketer to score a century in the World Cups, an achievement he'll be proud of. And I think that really set the tone for the game against Australia, which the bowlers couldn't really capitalize on. But
yeah,
having
they
said
couldn't.
that, I think they'll really be they should really be proud of their performances going forward. I just would think, come the 2025 Champions Trophy, I think certain things needs to be changed. I would like to say Jonathan Trott has done a magnificent job with the team. His involvement with the team, and also the bowling coach. I think Hassan should get a special mention as well. Hamid Hassan has done a spectacular job, especially with their pace bowling department. But what they can really improve on is their tactic of, say, now they have a set template that they go at a pace where they can only manage a 270, 280, 290 at the most. I think they can
Yeah,
change that attitude. And some of the players in that middle order, say Ahmed Shah or a Shahmatullah, or the captain himself, uh, can really, Shahidi can really, Hasmatullah Shahidi can really up the ante in that middle overs, and they can look to
yeah.
target a 330, 350. If they fall short of it, it's well and good. But targeting 270, 280, 290 on pitches that are heavenly for batting will not do them a whole lot of a good going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they'll be very happy with this performance and looking ahead. 2025 Champions Trophy, everyone will be very keen to see how they go about 2025, the T20 World Cup as well. But for me, 2027 World Cup, and though it's in South Africa, but if you've seen the South African pitches in the recent past, you've seen there's a lot of turn there in Durban. Even in pitches like Johannesburg, though Johannesburg doesn't really aid turn, you do get a lot of bounce for spinners. And if they can play well in Paarl, in Durban, and all these venues, I think they're gonna do really well in the 2027 World Cup, provided the batting coach sticks around and they only improve from here on. Because I think Gurbaz is a fine talent. Omarzai is one crazy talent. I think if he gets a lot more leagues to play across the
Yeah.
world, he'll be a well-refined cricketer come the next 4 years in the World Cup. And there's a very young team with the Afghanistan team, with Afghanistan, what they've got right now. Hopefully, they will be improved from here on. We'll go to the next team, team number 5 on the table. Obviously, it is a lot of people have spoken about already. the Pakistan team. I mean, it's a World Cup which had a lot of things spoken about outside, but nothing on the field for them. I mean, did well in the first two matches, but after that India game, they just derailed so bad. Lost to Australia, lost to Afghanistan, lost to South Africa. That they just hoped on Kudrat Kanazam.
Yeah, I think it's a team that went on to win only two of their last seven games. They went off to a flyer, one against Netherlands by a close margin, because I think Netherlands would have had them on the rails as well. 286 on that pitch was below par.
Yeah,
Uh, and also in the game against Sri Lanka, they were pushed to their limits. I think some very mediocre bowling from Sri Lanka allowed them to get to the highest successful runches in the World Cup history, where they beat Sri Lanka. But from then on, rightly said, I think the game against India really derailed them, derailed their confidence. They had Mickey Arthur coming in and saying "Dil Dil Pakistan kyun nahi bajaya," and stuff like that. But I think fifth position is a team. Pakistan should be happy with the fifth position, because I feel the brand of cricket that they have played, I think they could have well finished in the seventh or eighth position as well. I think it's a team that high things were expected from them, like the England side, but it's another team that really did not come good for them. The bowling department that was really, I mean, hyped about at the start of this tournament, the number one ODI bowler, Shaheen Shah Afridi, the people with the best bowling lineup with Harris Roth streaming in at 150 plus, and also Mohammad Wasim Jr. to support. If they would have had Nasim Shah, I think the result could have been slightly different, because power play bowling was one department where Pakistan really struggled. Shaheen Shah Afridi was not in his element, and you also saw Hassan Ali come in and try to fill in that Nasim Shah's boots, which was which was really difficult, especially because Hassan Ali was not even in the. I mean, he was dropped from this team because of bad form, and also in the batting department as well. You had a lot of political pressure, politics
yeah,
coming in. Imamul Haq getting dropped, Inzamamul
yeah,
Haq stepping down from chief selection committee, and a lot of changes here and there. So all in all, I think Babar Azam still managed to do a decent enough job to take this team to the
yeah,
fifth position. But having said that, I think Babar Azam is not. He is a very good batsman. Let's be really
yeah.
honest. We can go on and criticize him because of his batting sometimes, because of his slow strike rate. But I think that's his template. He can't really do anything about it. But some of the shots that he plays, I think he's a very good player. So is Mohammad Rizwan. But if you talk about captaincy, I think Babar Azam had probably been one of the worst captains in this tournament.
Yeah,
With
agree,
with
agree.
all the experience that he had in this tournament, I think he
Yeah,
really underperformed with the captaincy. And Pakistan also had some really close games. Probably the game against South Africa, if they would have won it, they would
yeah,
have been in a better position as well. But then again, you really ask whether they really deserve this position or not, because this team was all over the places. A lot of hype about this team, but they never really turned up. So I think all in all, they will be happy
absolutely.
with this number fifth position, because I still feel that they deserved one or two places below this. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So does Championship of 2025 is the last time for 50 over format? I don't think so, because in this World Cup itself, you saw fans getting attracted to 50 overs format
yeah.
to the midway of the tournament, or as the
I think
tournament
it's a
got
beautiful
interesting.
format. I think it has
It's a
lost a bit
beautiful
of
format.
relevance due to the
Hmm,
due to
I
the
think I
rise
think you
of
have to give it
T20.
time. You have to give it time, and
You
you
have to give
will
it time.
get attracted to it. I mean, I don't think it's the dead of the format, because you saw if there are good games, people will be excited to it. And if you look at
See,
this table
I
as
also have
well,
another
if you
interesting take. I think this surge of T20 has really diminished a 50 overs format. But if you talk about it, I think 50 overs format, players with better skills can sustain in the 50 overs format. It is difficult for
yeah,
teams. I mean, it is easier for teams to compete in the 20 overs format, where you can get away with 4 overs of bowling, where you can just
yeah,
get away with slogging all the
yeah,
time. But in 50 overs, you have to understand when to accelerate,
yeah,
when you have to take a back seat and really go at a strike rate of
yeah,
70, 80. And with the bowling as well, when you have to really be bowl attacking lines, when you have to be
yeah.
defensive. So I think it's a way more testing format than the 20 overs format, and I think it's
I agree.
interesting. You
I agree
understand
totally with
which
you. I
team
mean,
has the best quality with the 50
this
overs format.
format requires patience.
Patience,
This
yeah.
format requires skill. This format isn't like a T20. You need to have different faces which you have to deal with. You'll have to deal with your first 10 overs where the ball moves around. You have to deal with spinners. You'll have to show your patience. You'll have to show your power game in the last 15, last 20 rather. I think it's a format which has everything in it. So if you're ready to survive, this format really stays apart. And if teams can compete with each other, it's a beautiful format. You saw that 50 overs final of 2019 when two good teams go up against each other. It's a beautiful format. I mean, you saw some electric games even in this World Cup and even in the last World Cup. I think when it comes to big tournaments, 50 overs format is decorated, but I still think the survival of the bilateral series can be questioned. But if you have good series, also, if you remember 2013 when India played Australia in that 7 match series where only it was five, but you saw some crazy scores. It was a 4-3 or it was a 3-2 series. James Faulkner, Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli. You saw a lot of drama in that series. So if you have good 50 over series, people will be hooked onto it. But people are just not concerned about one-sided matches where a team is dominating the other, where results are 5-0 and 4-1, and you're playing your C team and B team. When two good teams are playing up against each other, you will watch. You will watch at the end of the day. And I think Championship of 2025 being there is a good sign to an extent because people don't lose a track of the format, or else you have to wait for 4 years more. In between this, there are two T20 World Cups as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. That's about from Pakistan. We'll talk about New Zealand now. The semi-finalists obviously not really do well after that first 4 games. Uh, lost, you know, lost their way. You can say could have possibly lost all their games. Just won one out of their last 4 or 5 games. Won the first five, won the first four, and won one of their first five, last five. Not having momentum coming into this semi final. How do you rate them in this position, and how do you see their squad in this tournament?
Yeah, I think they were the team that would have really hoped that they qualify, because they did not perform. I mean, like it did not seem that they have lost 4 games. If you talk about the 4 games that they lost, I think the only convincing loss was the loss against South Africa, where they lost by a huge margin, and the loss against India as well, because India chased down 270 odd runs with 3-4 overs to spare. The game against Australia was probably one of the best games in this tournament, probably after the Australia versus Afghanistan game. This was probably the second best game. 387, 382, a run massacre, run fest, one can say. And also the game against Pakistan, they did go on to score in excess of 400, and then they lost, unfortunately, with the DLS method and their bowlers not being able to grip the ball as well. But I think the batting department has done a terrific job. I think it's the bowling department that has really struggled. They were off to a clinical start with 4 wins on the trot. Then they had a speed breaker, and I think with the game against New Zealand, Sri Lanka, they'll once again be really happy because they dominated Sri Lanka, and they will be. I mean, they will not be in a very good shape of mind, especially because they're playing the number one side India, who have been absolutely spotless. But the team has certain weak points. But I feel that they will be confident after the Sri Lanka game. And the batters have done a terrific job. Rachin Ravindra has had the tournament of his life, probably one of the best
Yeah,
tournaments for a newcomer as well,
yeah,
across 48 years of World Cup. And also, I think very well supported by players like Daryl Mitchell, who has continued his good run with 419 odd runs, scored a brilliant century against India. Kane Williamson, in the 3 games that he played, scored two. I mean, 2 of those games he did go on to score brilliant half centuries. 95, was unfortunate to miss out a century in the last game. But then again, I mean, all the players. You have a Devon Conway who scored a 152 not out to start his campaign. He tailed off slightly after that, 207 runs of the next 8 games
yeah,
at an average
yeah,
of
yeah,
25 odd. So I think that will be one concern for them. Will Young is another player, scored at an average of 34, but had to give way for a Kane
yeah.
Williamson to come in at number 3. But all in all, I think this will be a confident team, and especially if the bowling clicks. Trent Bolt would be licking his lips right now. Wankhede, if they can somehow get India to bat first, bowling under the lights at Wankhede has been a nightmare for all the teams. So I think Trent Bolt will really be, optimistic about his chances. Lockie Ferguson did turn up well after coming in. Tim Southee has been there and thereabouts. I think he hasn't really impressed. Mitchell Santner is another player who has really impressed me with the ball.
Yeah,
Because if you talk about him at the start of this tournament, yes, he really dominates ICC events. Talk about
yeah,
ICC events, Mitchell Santner certainly comes and shines. But the way he has bowled in this tournament, I think he has picked up some 20. If I am right, I think he has picked up
yeah,
16 wickets.
yeah, 16 or 8.
I'm yeah, but very impressed with his economy of 4.81. A brilliant job with that as well. He has been New Zealand's leading wicket taker, and great things would be expected of him because the last time India faced against New Zealand in the semi-finals, it was Mitchell Santner who really slowed India down after the horrific start that India had.
Yeah. But India will be at least happy there's no Matt Henry to face with, and
Yeah,
India will have
yeah.
to
That
really
brings me
deal
to
with
the
them in a
weak
better
points. I
way.
think that will bring us to the weak
Yeah, that's
points.
one of the weak points as well to start out with. I mean, to be honest, the weak point is gonna be how their middle order performs. If you look Kane, after Kane, there's no one else. I mean, Daryl Mitchell is there, and Kane has not really come good. So there are lot of this World Cup has been about Rachin Ravindra and Daryl Mitchell, and players playing around them. So if you get Rachin and Daryl Mitchell out, how does this team go about it? Can a Tom Latham save them? Can a Mark Chapman save them? So these questions are definitely there. And for me, the biggest weak point is also their fast bowling. After Trent Bolt, I don't think Tim Southey gives them that kind of hold like a Matt Henry did,
Yeah.
or even a Lockie Ferguson does. So their
Team
biggest
Saudi,
issue
I
is going to
think
be that.
it's not the format for Team Saudi. I think he's way past his prime for the ODI and T20 format.
Yeah. And also to add to that, they'll also have a big thing about the fifth bowling option. They do not really have
Yeah.
fifth bowling option. So
And
there's
I
going to
think
be certain
it is
areas they
too
have
much
to
to
work with.
ask of Glenn Phillips to come in and be that fifth bowling option
Yeah.
because
So
India
India
are
will be
going to
knowing
really
that.
target him. Yeah.
Yeah, India will be knowing that they can target a Rachin Ravindra and a Glenn Phillips. And to add to that, they know they're very weak middle order. You saw that in that game, India versus New Zealand. The moment they started losing wickets, they lost that in cluster. So it's about not letting Daryl Mitchell score runs, who has had a good record against India.
Yeah, I think
And
Glenn Phillips has had a decent enough tournament. Average is close to 40 or just above 40, 244 runs in eight
but he
innings.
has not
I
really
think,
played an impactful knock in this World Cup.
yeah.
I mean, he scored
I mean,
runs
he
here and
has
there.
played an impactful knock, but it was the game against Afghanistan. But apart from that, I don't see him having played an impactful knock. He
Yeah,
scored two
yeah.
half centuries,
He's been very
but
below
yeah,
par in my opinion as well. So for them, they have a lot of questions in that regard in the bowling. I mean, though we rate their bowling really high, but since Matt Henry's injury, they've got so many issues with that bowling. And that's one of the reasons why they've really fallen apart as well. And even if you look at that Pakistan game, they did not have a bowler. You could target them pretty well. That's apart from New Zealand. Let's go to Australia. After the first two losses, a lot of us wrote them off, but they've been on a seven-match undefeated streak now, getting into the semi-final and peaking at the right time. How do you see this team? Mitchell Marsh scoring 177, Glenn Maxwell scoring at 200, Travis Head scoring runs, David Warner scoring runs, Steve Smith scoring runs. A very deadly side to reckon with.
yeah, I think it is going to be a huge surprise if Australia do go on to lose in the semi-finals because with the tournament that they have had, I think it looks really likely that this Australian side is going to make it to the finals. Especially after the run they have had after the loss against South Africa, ironically. The two games that they lost were against the top two teams, India and South Africa in the first two games. From then on, I think Australia really hasn't looked beatable. I think apart from the game against Afghanistan, where the top order played some ordinary strokes, and then you had to rely on a Maxwell brilliance, one of a kind knock from Maxwell to save them. Apart from that, I don't really see Australia having struggled, and I think a lot of credit should go to their spinner, main spinner, who really bounced back after ordinary two games. I think Adam Zampa had very mediocre two games, picked up one wicket in the first two games, and since then he has picked up 21 wickets in the next seven games, and he sits on the top of that wicket-taking list. And he has been very well supported in the middle overs by a Pat Cummins as well. You would say that Australia don't have a proper second spinner. Maxwell will have to come in and do the job as the second spinner for the side. But then you Maxwell and Marcus Stoinis have been very, very good fifth and sixth bowling option. They have stuck to their strengths. They haven't looked to try and do different things or experiment with too much. They have stuck to their strengths. They are bowling wicket to wicket, and we're hoping for the batsman to make a mistake, and they are trying to target them and losing their wickets as well. Another concern for this Australian side will probably be Mitchell Stark's performance, but because
Yeah,
when you talk about ODI World Cup, Mitchell Stark's performance in the ODI World Cup has been one of the best
yeah,
there has been. I mean, he was the leading wicket taker in 2015, was
yeah,
one of the leading wicket takers in 2019 as well. It was high things were expected of him come the ODI World Cup, but he hasn't really come to the party. Hazelwood has been really economical at times, but Hazelwood hasn't really picked up early wickets. Apart from the
right.
game against India, Hazelwood hasn't really contributed with the ball, especially in that wickets column with the new ball. That has been
Correct.
another concern for them as well. Talking about the batters, I think David Warner is soon going to be the second player in the history to have two seasons where two back-to-back World Cups where you go on to score in excess of 500. Rohit Sharma became
Yeah.
the first in the last game against Netherlands.
Yeah.
Warner sits at the top of the table for runs scored for Australia with 499. So one run and
Right.
he joins that elite club. And then you have a Mitchell Marsh having a brilliant tournament. 200s for Mitchell Marsh. I think this was his second and third hundred overall. So
Yeah.
two
Right.
of his three ODI hundreds have come in the World Cup.
World
That just
Cups.
goes
Yeah.
on to show he loves to play in India. Even you saw in the bilateral series against India as well. Mitchell
Yeah.
Marsh was providing Australia off to a great start. I think he has hit form at the right time. But another concern for this Australian team has been the middle order batting. Steven
Right.
Smith hasn't really stepped up apart from the last game
Josh
against
Inglis
Bangladesh.
hasn't.
Josh English, part of it, I understand it's an X Factor selection to get or select a Josh English ahead of Alex Carey, but I wouldn't have done that. I would have stuck to Alex Carey unless he's injured because that gives you the left-handers option as well. Apart from David Warner, they don't have a
Yeah.
left-hander in their top six. Marnus Labuschagne
Yeah.
is a misfit in this ODI team. I will stick to that point no matter how influential or how great a knock he plays for this Australian team because they already have a lot of power pack X Factor players who can bowl. You don't need a Marnus
Yeah.
Labuschagne. You need the calmness of an Alex Carey. And Alex Carey had some very instrumental knocks in the 2019 ODI World Cup as well. So I
Yeah.
think
He
that's a
did.
player getting missed. Yeah.
I mean, I think he still finds he can still find a place, but I don't think they'll change at this point to say in the
No, they
World
won't
Cup
change.
until unless there's a matchup which they have to reckon with. But that's about it from Australia. Definitely one of the favorites heading into the semi-final. But let's talk about South Africa. You think they've overachieved, or did you see them in the same final at the start of the World Cup?
No, I think they have overachieved. It is a team, I spoke about it. I think England and Pakistan would have had better hopes of making it to the semifinals than a South Africa. And a lot of people attributed South Africa's, World Cup, you can say choke. They choke in ICC events when the situation gets important or when it's a must-win game for them. They really, really choke under pressure. That
Yeah.
is something you have to give them credit to because in the last game against Afghanistan, they looked like they could probably choke once again, but they did go. Cross the line. In the game against Pakistan, it looked like they were going to lose, but they did go on to cross the line. So I think they have batted second four times in this tournament, and in all those four occasions, they looked like they were going to lose the game. Against
Right.
Netherlands, they did go on to lose the game. Against India, they did go on to lose the game.
Yeah.
And Pakistan, they looked like going to lose the game. Against Afghanistan, also, it was a tricky situation when they lost Miller at a very crucial stage. So I think chasing is an important part where South Africa is really lacking. When they're batting first, I think players like Quinton de Kock and Rassie Anderson has provided the team of two flyer starts. And from then on, players like Hendrik Klaassen and Aiden Markram has really capitalized on those starts to go on and score big. But if they're chasing, the calculation has not been there. They have not been the game awareness that is required of them hasn't been there.
Yeah.
One player that has really, really disappointed me so far in this tournament is David Miller because if you saw him get out while chasing in situations where you expect a David Miller of the kind of class that he has, the experience that he has with Gujarat Titans and their chasing prowess, you would expect a David Miller to be there at least till the end trying. But I think David Miller has been that one player who hasn't got going with the bat, and I
Right.
think the captain should really just give way. Temba Bavuma, I don't know what he's doing in the team. Riza Hendricks is a far,
Yeah,
far,
there was
far
slight bit
better
of
choice.
injury with him as well in the last game. Not sure
South
how
Africa will be
serious
hoping
that.
that he gets injured. I think if you're a South African fan, you should hope that Temba Bavuma gets injured right now because that is the only way he's going to get dropped from this team. And I think Riza Hendricks and his firepower at the start is something that he will need to conquer Australia in the semi-finals because apart from that, you can't expect a Temba Bavuma who has averaged only 25 odd runs in this World Cup. There was a debate going on, and a lot of people said that he averages some 61 in this
Yeah.
in this year. He was averaging some 61 in this year. But come when the pressure situation comes, we have seen Temba Bavuma really really underperform.
Yeah. But
And
how do they go about in that semi-final? Because they play in Eden Gardens, and their biggest
yeah.
strength has been batting first throughout this World Cup. If at all they get to
And we
chase,
saw what they
how do
did
they
in Eden
succumb to
Gardens when
that?
they did not bat first. They were absolutely rolled over against India.
Yeah, how do they succumb to that pressure if they are going to chase in that game? Because toss is definitely not in your hands. And I think teams winning the toss would want to bats first because semi-final and you want to put some score on the board, and especially South Africa would want to bat first. But if they don't bat first, how do they succumb to that pressure and how do they really go about the target? Because they've got the resources to chase any target
yeah.
down, but they're not quite using it.
I think they'll have to be street smart, and I think they'll have to be game aware. I think they haven't been game aware at all, and I think patience is required if you want to succeed at Eden Gardens, even at Wankhede as well, because the new ball is going to be tough to tackle on. And once the ball gets old, or probably towards the later end of the game, you will see the ball coming onto the bat with the dew coming in, dew setting in. You saw that in the game between Pakistan versus England, but Pakistan were really impatient. They lost a lot of wickets up front. They did not have enough resources to capitalize on towards the later end of the game. Something which they would really, kick themselves for. But even in the game against India, South Africa versus India at Eden Gardens,
Yeah.
you saw,
Yeah.
they had the resources. Players like David Miller, Henrik Klassen can really play spin really well, even like Aiden Markram. But you did not really saw them apply themselves. And Eden Gardens in recent times being spin friendly or assisting the spinners at all times, not recent times. But I think there is some assistance for the pacers as well. But you saw
Yeah.
India pick up 7 wickets in the game
We saw a
with
lot
the
of
spin.
turn in that England game as
There,
well, where
there
Moeen
is a
Ali
lot,
and
lots of
Adil
turn.
Rashid
Yeah,
got a lot of turn from the
exactly.
straight. So that's
And
good
that is where
news if
Australia
you're.
would probably be hope or would hope a Maxwell comes up and turns
Yeah, I
out
think
the way he
Adam
has done.
Zampa and Maxwell will be
Yeah,
hard players to reckon with. But one thing
exactly.
about South Africa, they played Zampa well. If you look at the
Yeah,
last 2 months,
yeah,
even if you look at that ODI series in South Africa or even in that World Cup game, Zampa was nullified by South Africans. So they want to really hope they repeat that. And at the same
yeah.
time, Keshav Maharaj will hold the key. He did ball really well against India. 1 for 30 was his figures.
Yeah,
And if they're playing Tabrez Shamsi, they want to hope that he does well as well because he was awful in that game against India, where he had
exactly.
no control over his lines. He was balling defensive lines as he was balling to a left-hander, but not to a right-hander, pitching outside the leg step and taking the ball away. So if Tabrez Shamsi gets a nod ahead, he'd want to ball well because he's too good of a bowler to be balling those
But do you
defensive
think
lines.
Tabriz Shamsi is really going to get a nod ahead of, say, a Gerard Coetzee? Because I
I
think
don't
he has
think
been the
so, but
most
given the
successful
fact the
bowler in
pitch
this
has been
tournament.
turning, that's the only reason why he might get nodded. But I still think they'll go in with a Rabada, Lungi, Janssen, and Gerald Coetzee, which has been their strength. You don't want to tinker on a lot in the
Yeah,
semi-final. Just
because
go in with
I
what
feel Aiden Markham can do the job as the second spinning option as well. But I think it will be really okay. You can probably drop a Ngidi. I don't know whether Ngidi is going to be fit as well because you saw him go off in the last game. So probably Tabriz Shamsi can come in place of Ngidi, but Gerard Coetzee, Marco Janssen, and Rabada are going to be really important for that clash as well. Especially Gerard
Yeah.
Coetzee has been the leading wicket taker, has played just 7 games but picked up 18 wickets in this tournament. And
Yeah.
has done a spectacular job in this
He's
tournament.
been
And
one
I
of the
think they
bowlers
would,
of the tournament.
yeah,
I mean, without Andre Nokia, the way in which they played, credits to him and the team for backing him. Because I really wanted him to play when people told there's no Andre Nokia, South Africa's chance to really go down. You know, to trust in a youngster in his first major tournament, he's come good. He's come good big time. That's about from South Africa. Let's talk about the first team on the table, unbeaten team, Team India. We did not talk about their yesterday's game, but what if group stage that they have had? I mean, near perfect to what they've done in every department. Yesterday saw a lot of fun being because they deserve to have that fun with Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, Surya, Shubman, everyone bowling. How do you define this campaign and how can they go 2 steps ahead now?
I think from a statistical point of view, if you just look at top run scorers, top averages, top wicket takers, top economy rates, everything is India right now because they have been spotless in this tournament. 9 games, 9 wins. This has been the most impressive run from any Indian team at a World Cup. Forget about playing at a home venue. I think even if you're talking about home conditions, I think this has been one of the most successful seasons performances so far in the season. This replicates the the season that New Zealand had in the 2015 ODI World Cup, where they went absolutely undefeated in New Zealand. So India have been undefeated at India so far, but I think now it's going on to that all important clash against New Zealand, where mind you they are going to be the favorites heading into that game. New Zealand are coming out of I mean they have lost 4 of their last 5 games. India haven't missed a step in this tournament, and I think they have triggered collapse for a lot of teams. New Zealand derailed after they played India. Pakistan derailed after they played India. Australia I mean, started off their campaign in the worst possible start after playing that game against India.
Yeah.
So I think they have had a very, very dominating effect on the other teams. But then again, semi-final match. Now they'll have to forget about everything that has happened. Just take on the experience of what they saw at Eden Gardens and the experience of what they saw at Ahmedabad. So the game against Pakistan, the game against South Africa, the conditions which they saw, the conditions they played in, I think they'll just keep that in mind and forget about everything that has happened so far. I think the next two games are going to be the most important games for India. No ICC trophy in the last 10 years from a side that is now sitting at the top of the standings for ODI, Test, and T20. So I think this is a travesty, and I think India needs to change that really, really soon.
I mean, that's to sum up. You've done everything right, but it's very rare to pick up points to really criticize on this team at this point. India would have to do the basics right. Just keep repeating what you've done. You don't have to change anything. Don't change your strategies, and you'd hope not just the big boys, the team performs as one. You don't want to pick up particular players to perform. If you have one match going to do it, if you're performing collectively as a team, as you did against Netherlands and other team, other matches, everybody can chip in with runs. That's it, and everybody can chip in with wickets, which we've been doing so consistently. That's it. So India would be hoping that, and that's about it from us for
No, but I
today.
think the bowlers have been on great form as well. The four
Yeah,
bowlers. I think Mohammad Shami needed to have a bad game. I think it was the game against Netherlands. I am happy that he's
I
away
mean,
with his bad
I
games.
just felt yesterday the ballers were not in full tilt. They just were
Yeah,
not
they
looking
just turned up
100%.
for fun. I think they were just trying out what they
The
can
moment you score
improve on.
400, you were just playing it around, and you knew you were going to win, and you have to preserve your energy because you're going to be in the field day after tomorrow in the afternoon, or maybe in the night, whatever you're going to ball. But
But what do you
having
reckon?
said
What would India prefer at Wankhede? To
batting,
chase or to
batting
bat
first,
first?
bat first. Don't give New Zealand a sniff because New Zealand's biggest chance is going to be to have India to bat under lights.
Under lights, yeah. I think that is something that one can be
Because then
scared
you
of.
will see a Slim Southie and Trent Bolt come into the game a lot more effective. But
Exactly.
in daytime, I don't really see them both really having that effect like what they could
I
possibly
think Rohit
have.
Sharma is going to hold the key with the bat because you talk about players performing, all the players coming in, chipping in, doing the
Yeah,
job for you, but it has been very, very dependent on Rohit
yeah.
Sharma's starts.
I
Rohit
think if Rohit
Sharma
Sharma
needs to
gives us a
come and
start
give
once
that
again,
start. Yeah,
his home ground, I really see him score big. And I really
yeah.
want Rohit Sharma's
And I
one
think he
big
missed
one.
out in the last game that they played at Wankhede. He missed
Yeah,
out against Sri
yeah.
Lanka.
I
I
think
think he'll be
he can
hoping
come
to
good.
change that.
And I
Yeah.
think if there's a bigger game for him to come good, this is the one because if he
I think
does
just
well,
step
I'm
out.
pretty
I
sure
think you
he'll
can
win
just
you the
step
game.
out and hit Trent Bolt. You don't have
I
to
mean,
sit on
he's
your
a
crease
genuine
and
match winner.
wait for the in swinger.
He's
Yeah.
a genuine match winner. Let's be all honest. And we've got Virat Kohli, we've got a Shubman, we've got Shreyas, Kale, but Rohit Sharma is a genuine match winner. When he scores once, he wins you a match and gives it in your hand. And I think it's
I
all
think
gonna
with
be
all
on.
selfless talk, I think Rohit Sharma has been getting a lot of praise this time around. I think, and he deserves so. He deserves all the praise that he has been getting because of his selflessness. You tend to wonder that Kohli playing at a stride of 90, Shreyas Iyer playing for his century, or even Gill at times coming in and going at a stride of 90-95. They are playing for themselves, which is completely wrong. I would like to say that people who believe that players are coming in and playing for themselves, I think you should just go and I mean, not watch cricket at least because this team has looked to be in great camaraderie. They have shown great camaraderie on and off the field as well. You see them having fun, poking fun at each other, having a great time, and I think
Yeah,
that is going to be very, very important. They are going to stay the same,
yeah,
and God forbid if anything bad happens, you still have to all the people, to all the Indian fans, to everybody who has really wowed over Rohit Sharma's captaincy in this tournament. God forbid if anything bad happens, you still should stick to him as the best captain in this tournament because I think he has done a tremendous job. Yes, we will come
yeah.
in, we'll criticize him for his game performances in that particular game, but right now I think you should just enjoy, sit back, relax, and enjoy the performance of this Indian team.
Absolutely. Just want to enjoy every moment of it. I mean, if it continues for 11 games, it's just going to be brilliant. And we just hope it's 11-0 and fingers crossed. Everybody just don't want to jinx it from here on. That's about it from us. I mean, we've had a good time talking about all the teams. 1 hour of lengthy discussion. Thank you, Satibani, once again. Happy Diwali to everybody who's been celebrating it. And I hope you all had a very blessed Diwali. And we'll be joining you tomorrow for the semi-finals preview because it's big games, boys. It's big game. India versus New Zealand, big game. We'll talk about playing 11 conditions, who should play, and what for what should India expect. So all of these things tomorrow. Stay safe, all of you. See you all tomorrow. Take care and bye bye.
Well, guys.